Hello guys, here is another episode of your sandbox project, and this tutorial is the feature request, but to complete it fully you need to take a look at two previous tutorials. The first one is about the world map and minimap, and the second one is for world map location pin system. They both together take like nearly 4 hours of listening and learning, but the cost is it's not pretty high for such a complex feature. This tutorial is for those who actually have been following me for several months, and they know the pipeline of world map system. But soon I'll make like the light version of world map with all other features, with the navigation system and so on, from the scratch for, I guess, third-person character template. It won't be very hard and like fully correct in the way how the project, in my opinion, should look, but to get the idea and to have the rapid prototyping feature in your hand, this will actually work. So let's begin. Before we start, I should tell that this system requires to have navigation mesh volume on each level. The reason is pretty much simple. Navigation mesh has already have the ability to build shortest ways from one point to other. And we need to add supported agent in the navigation system under our project settings. The name here is route. The reason is pretty much simple. We need to adjust the cutaways from each of our world objects. By default, Nav Mesh builds holes near the objects precisely in the correct way. So we don't need to have it made nearly the area so they are connected. You need to have bigger holes in case to have less area here for our feature to build the route with proper angles, like 15, 30 and 45 degrees. It's the easiest way how to obtain this. So once you've add supported agent, all you need is to adjust Nav Agent Radius. By default it's 34. Here I'll have gone with 400. Also, your level should be designed in a proper way, so you won't have any graphical artifacts, because this system is very it highly depends on how the nav mesh is built. So once you've done it, you need to add the navigation mesh volume for your level. My level is 1 kilometer size, so it's 5,000 units on one and on other side. So you need to scale your nav mesh correctly. So bounds should be the same. I have 250 on each side. Next, when you've done your configurations, you can see recast nav mesh, and the name root says that it's my custom agent. You can adjust agent radius to different values to see how it will be better for your level. And that's pretty it for the nav mesh. Next, from the previous tutorial where I had the world location pin system, we need to open our widget HUD map, and here let me see how it was made. Yep, the function on mouse button down. Previously here was a function called add location pin, this one, and by default it looks like this. So it adds location pin, and that's all. We need to make a duplicate of this function with little differences. I've called my function make root, so it does nearly the same, but here I have some differences. The first one is get actor of class, and actor class is map capture. If you follow my tutorial, you know this map capture required for each of your level, and it is only one actor for each level. It is instance by default, so you will always have the reference to it. And for the map capture, I've added the function which is called make root. You need to do this outside the HUD widget, because it's not the point of HUD to work with very hard logic, because we need a lot of operations done, a lot of computations. So once I have the reference to map capture, from the return value here I can call the make root function, this one. For the input it has final location and location pin. So provide it here and make sure that on mouse button down you have another function which is called make root. In future I'll make the switcher for the world map between making a root or adding the location pins, but for now it's the way how I do this, because now I need only this function to work in my project. Let me see. Yep. So that's all you need to do inside HUD map widget. Next, let's quickly take a look at the player character and player character interface. Inside player character, I have the function which is called get minimap data, And by default, from the previous tutorials, it only has to return nodes, return pins, the minimap size in units and minimap boolean status. But I need to have the reference for my map, BP map. This one, which is actually captures the everything outside, like everything in the game. And when the play character is spawned, my map also spawns, and that's it. But to make the whole logic work, I need to have the reference for my map, so I can send the message through the interface to receive the map reference. So what I need to do is to go to the play character interface, and inside the function getMinimapData, I need to add another output. It is called minimap reference and type is bpmap. Once it's done, I can go back to the play character and get map reference inside the minimap reference. That's it. That's all I need from the character and play character interface. And we are almost done. Let's go to the map and quickly take a look at world minimap and world map captures have in their scene capture attributes. We need to change the capture source to scene color, and we need to select static mesh, translucency, and instant static mesh. We don't need to have any post-process here, so our scene capture will return only those elements without any post-process like multipliers. So we will have the raw color, and that's all we need. We don't need to have influence from the post-processes for our capture. So once it's done, we can also close it and talk about the map capture blueprint. So all I have here is just this big function here and this one also. So make root. As you can see, I store final location and location pin as the local references. Then I use cast to common marker. So logic here looks nearly the same from the previous tutorial, where I have the logic for showing and clearing the location pin. This one. But with some differences. If we cast to the common marker, and common marker is location also, as you can see, I have another variable which is called root pin, and its type is common marker. If the location pin we have from the calling our function is the same as the root pin, I'll explain it later. We need to call a function from our command marker, destroy marker. This one, also from the previous tutorial. It means that if this function is executed, the pin on our world map and minimap will be destroyed. You can also see that we have the spline component here, also spline mesh array of spline mesh components. So the logic is pretty much simple. When we have the pass from one point to other, we build a spline, and on this spline we will spawn the spline mesh, which will be hidden under the ground, but it will be added to the scene capture component, so it will be rendered in our world map and minimap. Once we are moving, we need to clear the leftovers, and if we change the direction, we need to rebuild our path. So, also, as you saw from the preview, if we make routes and then we need to clear it, it's like going through this logic. So we trying to make a pin, and if the pin is location and it's the same as the root pin, so we have already one, we need to destroy it and destroy all the components that we have for our root, all our splines. So we destroy spline mesh component, and we are iterating through the spline mesh list and destroying our components, spline mesh components. Then we need to clear our array, and here you can see I have clear and validate timer by handle. This goes for this function, draw root. So make root is callable only when we are adding the location pin on our world map. And this one is for real-time updating of all our route. So when we don't have any route, we need to clear our timer here to stop updating all this logic. Then if cast fails, it means that we are not overlapping with any of command marker, and then we need to add like all other logic. So we also check if root pin is valid. So if it's not, it's our first pin, we need to add spline component and then execute this part of logic. If it's valid, it means that we already have the root pin. This is for like changing the route that you also saw from the preview, like when you make, let me show you. So here I have root, then I need to change it. So this part of logic that I am explaining to you, making this one. So if I want to rebuild my route, I need to destroy previously added pin, then clear all of my passes, and then go to this logic also. And I need to add spline component only for the first one entrance, because I don't need to add it every time. I only need one like one instance of it. Then all I do is, also from the previous tutorial, I get the row from the data table with the location and spawn marker within the final location I have from here. Market type is set to location and market structure is that I have from my data table, this one. So, and this marker is my route pin. What I am measuring with my location pin from my calling my function. And after this, I use set timer by event. It's looping every 0.2 second and it's calling draw route, this function. And I do need to create the custom event because the function can't use timers. So once this function is called, and it's called only one time per each my new location pin, it resets the timer and this logic starts over and over. So here I check if the route pin is valid, because if it's not, I do need to clear the route timer and destroy all of my spline components. The reason is pretty much simple. Let me show you. So once I have this location and when I reach it, just wait, it should clear and it should clear all the meshes. So that's the reason to have this logic here. And the order is also you need to firstly clear the timer, so you won't be doing this operation over and over each time this function is executed. So once our route pin is not valid, we need to stop everything and clear leftovers. And if it's valid, I do this logic, like I'm deleting the previously added spline components. Then I go and find the route and adding another spline component. So that's why this system works. Let me show you one more time. So I've done it here and it's now deleting and adding the same parts of splines. I can actually make it more performance friendly, but this already is pretty much good, and the feature is also complicated, so this way is pretty well. So, as I said earlier, Nav Mesh has built-in function that you see right now, which is called find path to location synchronously, and it helps me to build the route. So here all I do is I get the location from my character and the location that I have from this function. I don't need that access to build my route. So then I cache the path points into the vector array so I can manipulate it. Oh, that's not really important. It was like when I was experimenting with this feature. Then I use this array and set spline points with the world space location. And here spline component that we have created here. Then I iterate through the spline segments, start with 0 as first and -1 for the last one. I also cache the index as spline segment index for the quick, and like I don't like to have really messed spaghetti code, so if I can handle it's clear, I do this. Next, I add spline mesh component, and here is the trick. For the static mesh, I use spline plane. It's simple plane, but with loop cuts on the x-axis. The more loop cuts you have, the more precise and less distorted material on edges when the mesh is distorted you will have. So for better corners, for better shape, more loop cuts, but not too much. 10 is pretty much enough. And the basic size is 100 by 100 units, so it's 1 meter. Also I have spline material, and it goes from the simple material which is called debug. A lot of people struggle with default, I guess, issue when the spline mesh doesn't support the material. All you need to do is to go in the details, and here you need to select used with spline mesh. Once you've done it, your spline mesh will receive your material. Also, start scale and end scale scales properly the spline mesh. Don't do mistake and scale it here or here. Scale it inside this category. Also, for the transform, I put my under the ground within -150,000 units. The reason is simple. Also from the previous tutorials, all of my my system is like the layered cake, when each, let me show you, when this icon and this icon, they are on different levels on the world that axis, so it's some sort of that sorting. So I do need to have it under all of my other icons, so they will cover the start and the end of the splines. If I don't do this, my spline will be displayed over my icons. Also, you can go with something like this, and when you do this, you'll see that if you build your spline, it will look like this. But now this doesn't capture with my system. I can handle this issue later, but this can be used in cases to draw the, like also to help you to navigate on your map. So let me check it one more time. Yep, everything works fine. Next, I collect all of my Spline Mesh components inside this Spline Mesh array, which I clear here and here, also here. Then I simply use set start and end. I don't really care about tangents, because I do like have sharp corners. And from spline component, I get location at spline point with the local space, the same but for the last element. So here is +1, it's the end, not the last element, the end of the spline segment goes under the end position here. That's how the spline mesh is built. And when it's completed, our mesh is built, we need to, as I said earlier, from player character get minimap data, and we need to update map show list. So we gather our spline mesh list, this one, and as our map uses show only list, you can see it right here, we need to update it with the elements from our array. So once we have the reference here, and we will always have it because our player character, if it spawns, if this map is spawned with him, so we call this function from our map, and for each of our spline elements we add them to the show component list. That's how this feature works. So that's all you need to do to have this feature work. I hope you like what you have seen. Please leave your comments, your feedback. Join me on my Discord server. When I'm there, I can help you if I'm not on my day job. Also, you can support me on my Patreon page. And if you like what you've seen, I'm a little bit exhausted because this feature took me quite time to complete. So one more time, if you like what you've seen, do everything that I said you earlier and stay tuned. Also, as I said, I'll make the light version of this feature, and I also will share like the whole feature pretty much soon. It will be free. So see you next time. Bye.